OpenGL not working, Final Fantasy 13 still crashing, Original Crisis not working. First upscaler is FSR 1. It was a complete joke. It was just complete joke. Really bad ray tracing support. So God of War, completely unplayable for the first 6 months of the game's release. You had this really high profile game. You bought this really expensive graphics card, at least $1,000, and it cannot run it with an acceptable level of performance at 1440p. Really starting to feel long in the tooth to keep having all these issues. Even though I really like the hardware, you always had all these issues that kept piling up and never being fixed over several iterations of the driver. You still have really bad encoders, poor OBS support, really weird experience with streaming and recording, audio crackling, video dropping frames. Hello guys, so welcome back to the channel. We've had so far quite a few strings of like very, controversial news coming out from AMD, specifically when it comes to their driver support for RDNA 1 and RDNA 2. So I wanted to try and think about what this means going forward for people who are just joining on the PC space. And I think it's something that we really need to stop and think about carefully for a little bit. So far we saw AMD put out a statement on their new driver that they were going to move RDNA 1 and RDNA 2 to some sort of, just basic support status where they would receive, of course, security updates and things like this. But it sort of meant the end of the day zero game support and optimization, right? Essentially telling people that the RDNA, sub-RDNA 3 products were not going to have the same level of game optimization and software optimization as the new architectures do. And this started to make people very, very concerned about the future of the graphics cards, especially because for example, the RDNA 2 6900 XT card, like not just the card, but the generation in general, is not only extremely popular and very economical. Like you can get those for very cheap, but it's not only that, like really accessible to people. It's also fairly competitive in modern titles. Like I have a 6900 XT on my sub rig, and you can play like Silent Hill F at 120, 130 FPS, no problems. You can, run Monster Hunter Wilds at really high frame rates. I was also getting like 100 in 40p with a little bit of FSR 3. And there's, of course, a lot of, all the previous catalog of games when it was competing with the 3090, where it can do very well at 4K. Like, for example, Final Fantasy 15. You can play that at 120 FPS at 4K on standard settings, which is still higher than console. So, the RDNA 2 family specifically is like very competitive even today. Like the 6900 XT is still pretty strong. It's coming very close to like, I don't know, 5070 performance. Like the 5070 is faster a little bit. It uses less power, of course, but the 6900 XT is up there. Like it's still competing with the mid-range of today. It comes with 16 gigabytes of of VRAM. Like they're pretty good. Like, okay, um, like they have their own quirks. For example, my RDNA 2 card will crash on Battlefield 6 if you play long sessions, which is something that AMD needs to fix. Like, I don't know why Battlefield 6 is not working correctly on RDNA 2. But I mean, this is something I also want to highlight, which is that, even if we're not getting the same level of hardware care as the new architectures, it is not like the hardware care was perfect already when we had full support for them. Like, and these are things I need to highlight as a person that spend a lot of money on AMD cards. I own 3 RDNA 2 cards. Let me write it. I own RX 6400, RX 6800. This is the, what is it called? The reference model. And I own a 6900 XT Red Devil. I own 3 RDNA 2 graphics cards, all of them paid for with my own money. So when I give you my opinions on AMD, I am giving them to you as a real world user of AMD graphics cards. Like, I'm not making stuff up. I really have spent my own hard-earned money on these cards. So let me tell you what the experience has been. So experience with day one games, or experience with the driver support games, right? And just to also, to add to this, these are the AMD graphics cards that I personally owned before. So let me just make this a little bit bigger. So subtitle, that's too big. Let's make it subheading, right? And this is like subtitle, yeah. So the AMD graphics cards that I have personally owned are the Radeon 7. I own the Radeon 7 and I liquid cooled it. I eventually liquid cooled it. I have owned an RX 5700 XT. Beautiful card. It was absolutely a really nice card to go to from the Radeon 7. Like, it was not a whole loss in performance going to the 5700 XT. So let me try to tell you what I experienced with AMD drivers while I was using all of these cards, okay? Like, and I don't mean using them when we already had RDNA 3 out. I mean using them when they were top priority for AMD Radeon at the time to optimize for each and every one of these architectures. So let me try to, just tell you my experience, right? This is my experience. So, for example, 5700 XT. No, let's start with the Radeon 7. So Radeon 7 is the first card I owned, the first modern AMD graphics card that I owned. And here are some of the things that I experienced with this card. So, first of all, the cooler was terrible. The thing was extremely loud. It was basically unusable unless you liquid cooled it, right? So I ended up liquid cooling it. So the cooler was terrible. I had to liquid cool it. It was extremely loud. It was extremely hot. It was so hard to control. But on the upside, the HBM2 memory was amazing. And you had 16 gigabytes of it. The performance was pretty damn good. It was pretty damn good. And it had moderate support for older games. So it was fine. It was more or less fine. Like, for example, if you were playing stuff on DirectX 9, it was still fine because it was using the, all the old optimizations they did for GCN. It was pretty baller. So let me highlight the negatives, more of the negatives, right? So there was no DLSS support, right? There was no DLSS support at the time. You had DLSS 1 from NVIDIA, but it very quickly evolved when we went to Death Stranding, and they put out DLSS 2, and it was just a bloodbath. Like, the Radeon 7 did not have DLSS. It did not have any upscaler. There was no upscalers, right? No upscalers, which is like nothing you can do. The encoder was pretty trash. Like, the if you wanted to do streaming with this card, the quality was just absolutely not there. It was pretty bad. But overall, it was like a pretty stable card. If you thought of it as a sort of like just a regular graphics card at that time, like it was not like it was not really compatible with DX12 Ultimate, right? And so it was fine, but you still felt like it was a premium product because you were on the 7 nanometer thing. You had the HBM2, like it was a pretty good card, right? So it was still, I still felt like it was worth it, right? So 5700 XT, oh boy. So the good parts, performance pretty close to Radeon 7, but a bit bad at 4K. Like, if you were pumping high resolution, the Radeon 7 was consistently better, and it consistently had just better frame times. It was just better, right? But the 5700 XT was a really good card for 1080p. Like, I think it was pretty amazing. The hardware was buggy when it came out. And what do I mean by buggy? So it was designed to be DX12 Ultimate compatible, but it was not really compatible with it. So no ray tracing, no hardware variable rate shading, what they were calling the primitive shaders, right? It was supposed to come with something called primitive shaders, and I still remember so many people, in pumping all these fake rumors about, oh, primitive shaders are coming, they're coming, there will be a driver coming with the primitive shaders and whatever, and they will eventually, I remember when Crytek came out with the hardware demo for ray tracing, and the 5700 XT was doing pretty good. People were saying, "Oh, the ray tracing support for the 5700 XT is coming. It is coming. It is coming." None of that shit was true. None of it was true, man. None of it was true. Like, it was pure bullshit, and the drivers were an absolute joke. So black screens with drivers. Lost all game optimizations with the jump to RDNA 1. This is something that not a lot of people were discussing. Like, if you keep benchmarking newer games, but I am the kind of person, I keep a huge collection of games. I buy them, I keep them, I like to go back and play them. For example, I noticed this very quickly, noticed Crisis is broken with terrible slowdowns, unfixable with settings. It's either a driver or a hardware problem. I don't know what it is. Like, Crisis doesn't run well. It just doesn't. I mean original Crisis. I don't mean remastered. I have not ever downloaded remastered because I have the original Crisis trilogy. It looks amazing and it runs just fine on NVIDIA. Like I have played it on my 3060 at really high frame rates. It works fine, but on the RDNA hardware, it has never run fine for me. It just has these weird slowdowns where if you look through glass, your performance drops to like 20 FPS and there's nothing you can do. Like it's just absolutely terrible. Um, Final Fantasy 13. This is something that I have so many videos on Final Fantasy 13, so it just crashes. It crashes in chapter 3. When you go into the ice, you get into some battle and it crashes and you can never get past that point. It's over, man. You cannot play the game. And Final Fantasy 13 is one of my favorite games of all time, and is one of the games that really got me started on the hardware space, because at the time we were transitioning into having the PC as the ultimate gaming platform, where we started to get bangers like Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy just coming to PC. And the Final Fantasy 13 is stunning. You run it right now at 4K, it looks stunning, and it doesn't work on RDNA hardware. I do not know why, right? It just doesn't work. And let's not remember, no DLSS support, no upscalers at the time. No no full DX12 Ultimate. So when we had really amazing games like Alan Wake, not Alan Wake, sorry, Control. We got Control, which came out during the Radeon 7 period. If you had an NVIDIA graphics card, it was a real treat, because that game was really using all the ray tracing stuff in more or less what was going to become the future that we have now. Like, it was really impressive, and I think that was one of the games where it was really worth it to have the full ray tracing support. And if you had, for example, a 2080 Ti, which came out at the same time as the Radeon 7, you could use all of that stuff. You have DLSS, ray tracing, everything, but you bought a 5700 XT. There's nothing you could do, man. It's just nothing you can do. So let me jump now to RDNA 2, right? Because I will just categorize all of them under the same umbrella. It makes no sense to make separate categories. So let me try to tell you my story with RDNA 2. So I started to get RDNA 2 cards during the mining boom, right? You can never buy the 3080 because it was being bought up by all these miners, and you had to eventually buy a sculpt card, but it was very obvious that the NVIDIA cards were the preferred cards of the miners because they just had better memory buses. They had, it was just better for miners to use NVIDIA cards. So I eventually got myself a reference 6800, bought directly from a computer shop in Japan. I got a 6900 XT from a scalper, and the reason I keep both cards. The reason I do is because, if you cannot beat them, join them. I did do a bit of mining with both cards, and they were perfect for that. They were not very fast, but they could still mine pretty well. But when it came to gaming, I had a lot of problems with them. Oh, let me highlight something. So, no encoder improvements, right? 5700 XT, basically no encoder improvements. So, RDNA 2. One of the cards was put in my wife's computer. She works with MATLAB. She needs to do analysis on data, produce graphs, produce, in MATLAB, you need to render several things, like heat maps, you have to render graphs, and all of these procedures need OpenGL. Guess what? Anything she rendered using these cards was completely invisible. It wouldn't render anything, and we tried different drivers. We tried, we tried going back to old drivers. We tried updating drivers. We tried using the basic display drivers. None of it helped the issue. It was just absolutely terrible OpenGL support. Cannot render anything in MATLAB. Like, it's useless for that. It was completely useless for that. And It's and OpenGL has always been sort of a big problem on AMD, also on 5700 XT. So terrible OpenGL support, right? So and which kind of apps you would run in OpenGL? For example, Minecraft. At the time, Switch emulation. If you wanted high end Switch emulation, you had to have good OpenGL performance, and just 5700 XT was not doing it. And with RDNA 2, it was also not doing it. So RDNA 2, Final Fantasy 13, still crashing. Original Crisis, Trilogy not fixed, right? So we inherited the same problems as RDNA 1 with optimizations for old games that they were just spotty, not working very well. So OpenGL not working, Final Fantasy 13 still crashing, Original Crisis not working. First upscaler is FSR 1. Absolutely terrible image quality. Like, it was just absolutely terrible. Like, Nvidia was already on DLSS 2.5 by this point. We got FSR 1. It was a complete joke. Like, it was just complete joke. It was just it's bad, man. It just doesn't look good. I'm sorry. Really bad ray tracing support. So Cyberpunk, like, the only game you wanted to play with ray tracing, really, like, if there was a game you wanted to play with ray tracing, it's Cyberpunk out of all of them, right? So Cyberpunk unplayable with ray tracing, even at 1080p. Like, you turned on ray tracing at 1080p, you couldn't get a stable 60 FPS. Like, the main issue with RDNA 2, like, if you go look at benchmarks, it would seem that the ray tracing is better. Like, if you have a 6900 XT, it would seem that the ray tracing is almost on par with a 3070. And you look at the charts on these benchmarks, but they don't really represent the experience. So the issue with ray tracing on RDNA 2 is that you have really low lows and really high highs, and the experience fluctuates like this as you move the mouse. Like, it just cannot handle it, man. It's doing some sort of ray tracing emulation, or I don't know what it's doing, but the performance is just not consistent at all. And it was shocking to me that when I put a 3060 in my system, 1440p, performance DLSS, ultra ray tracing, I was getting 50 FPS on the 3060, right? But the gameplay experience was consistent. Like, it is consistently 50 FPS with the 3060, even you're doing gunfights or whatever. So it's not fluctuating like this. It's a consistent line, which to me made it playable. Like, I could play and I played a lot of ray tracing games on a 3060 where I just couldn't do it on RDNA 2. Like, you turn it on, it's absolutely terrible because it keeps doing this thing, right? So, you had this ray tracing support, which they were missing already for 2 generations. Remember, this came out with 2080 Ti, the Radeon 7, right? So ray tracing was missing for like 2 whole generations, dude. It was missing for 2 whole generations. Then, and I want to highlight this because a lot of people forget about this. If you go and search on Google, you will find it, because everyone says, okay, you buy RDNA cards, AMD cards, it is because you want to play Sony games, and Sony games will run the best. This is completely false. And the prime example is God of War. So God of War, unplayable, completely unplayable for the first 6 months of the game's release. And this one hurt me a lot because I really wanted to play God of War. I bought the game. I tried running it on my i7 12700 plus 6900 XT, and the performance was an absolute joke. Like, when you move the camera, you would get these really hard performance drops, which did not happen on Nvidia. Like, it was completely unplayable. You move the camera just a little bit, and the FPS would go down, and everybody would complain, and AMD would say, "We will fix it. We will fix it. We will fix it. We will fix it," and that they were working with with the developer, with Sony. I forget who ported that, and they were working with the developer to try to fix it, and they sort of put out some fixes and stuff. So they were game fixes, they were driver fixes, and eventually I never felt like they really fixed it. Like, they improved the situation, but they didn't really fix it. So I actually finished God of War on my 3060, and it ran perfectly there. Like, God of War on my 3060 was an absolute dream. It ran without issues, really good performance, really beautiful looking game. You had DLSS, and to me, I really felt deeply at that time that AMD was not really serious about taking care of their customers, because God of War was a really high profile game when it came out. Like, it was really high profile, and it really hurt that you had this really high profile game. You bought this really expensive graphics card, at least $1,000, and it cannot run it with an acceptable level of performance at 1440p. I wasn't even asking for 4K, just 1440p. And it's just, I don't know, man. If you don't believe me, go search on Google. Go search on Google. You will find all the complaints from back then. I'm serious. Just go search it on Google. And to me, this was more or less the start of the end of wanting to use AMD products. Like, it was just not it, man. Like for me, it was not it. It was really starting to feel long in the tooth to keep having all these issues. Even though I really liked the hardware, you always had all these issues that kept piling up and never being fixed over several iterations of the driver. You still have really bad encoders, poor OBS support, really weird experience with streaming and recording, like audio crackling, video dropping frames, or weird color bugs. Like, if you're trying to record HDR, the color would be totally messed up, so you couldn't use AMD cards to record HDR at the time. I was playing Jedi Survivor. I wanted to do some gameplay captures. HDR recordings were completely broken. It was just issues upon issues upon issues, and at some point it made me reconsider what actually was the better product for me. And everyone is saying RDNA 2 is not even that far away, right? It's not even that old of an architecture, and they're hoping that AMD will continue supporting them along with RDNA 4. But what I want you to see here is that even when the hardware is supported, the experience was not good, man. It was not good. Like, to me, this experience was just not good. So what does this mean? So what is the message? So my message. So first of all, thinking about it critically. So AMD more or less announced their intentions. They don't want to support RDNA 2 and 1 that much because they want to focus on RDNA 4 Plus. This is clear. This is, with the original announcement, this is more or less clear that they want to focus on the future architectures more than they will on the older ones, and their announcement is only to avoid bad press. First of all, they want to avoid the bad press. Doesn't really mean they mean they mean to support the architectures 100%. And why would you? Like, RDNA 1 was already broken. Like, the hardware itself had broken pieces which were not working. RDNA 2, you can think of the ray tracing as broken because it really wasn't working. Like, nobody was using ray tracing on RDNA 2. Let's be serious. It doesn't have AI capable hardware. It cannot do tensor operations. So RDNA 4 is not working there. So it's incomplete hardware, really. That's what it is. And RDNA 3 was really not that much better. So what I want to say is that, I think we should expect more and more issues to crop up in the future on RDNA 1 and 2 cards. They, I think this is just a natural thing to go. We already know their intentions. They didn't want to support the architectures. And even in their heyday, the architectures have had a lot of problems, dude. They had a lot of problems. Oh yeah, black screen. So black screen woes still continued for a lot of people. For me, I didn't have black screen issues on RDNA 2. I had them on RDNA 1. Wait, no, I did have. Still continued when using multiple monitors. I did have black screen issues. Yeah, I did have them. So, I think that we need to be careful. I do not think that buying AMD Radeon is safe. So, I do not think buying RDNA 4 now is safe. This is an indication as to how they plan to support their chips going forward. And the reason this makes sense is because if you think about it, they don't have a big team to do the drivers. They simply don't have that big of a team. They don't have that big of market penetration. Like, they're still so small and so little represented in the hardware space that, why would they cannot invest in all this driver research and development. And it will be the job of people writing Linux drivers to even get these old architectures to work fine. But I personally, I don't care about Linux. I don't game on Linux. I don't think Linux is a good platform for gaming. That's my personal opinion. If you want to game on Linux, go ahead. Just don't tell me about it. I already tried Linux. I know what it is to install Linux. I know what it is to go through the Proton versions, the Wine versions. I already know all that thing. I did it. I don't like it. I don't like that experience. I just want the thing to work. And when you buy an AMD product and they give you a Windows driver, they should be able to promise to me that their Windows driver is going to make the hardware perform to the best of their ability. If they cannot, then don't offer a driver. Just open it up and let people write the drivers, like write open source drivers. Can you imagine if the same people putting all this effort into writing the Linux drivers would be able to do the same thing for the Windows driver? I think it would be pretty cool. But at the same time, why is this company getting away with constantly selling these products with all these huge problems, and people still keep going back and buying and buying and buying and buying? And here's the other part of my message, which is that ultimately it doesn't matter what I say. Anybody new or getting into hardware will eventually by AMD and experience it themselves. It's the only way for them to understand. And this is just the nature of people. Like, if I tell you right now, my experience has been consistently like this with AMD products, even I show you videos of my games crashing and performing badly. You can find them on my channel. Even if I do this, people will still not believe it will be the same experience for them. So they would choose to buy the AMD products, and then they will maybe be in the same state of mind that I am 5 or 6 years down the road. Because for me, it has been like a 6 year road of buying all these AMD products and finally understanding that they're not for me. AMD is not for me. Like, AMD Radeon is just not for me. Just not for me. And cannot recommend. And this is my personal experience. And this is something I just want to say because I think more people need to really talk about the experience of using AMD products. Like, when you just want to play a new game with your friends and the thing doesn't work because of a driver issue, it's really frustrating, you know? Like, it's frustrating. And it happened to me so many times with older titles, with new titles. And I was tired of that. And I'm very surprised that, you know, even when the architectures were brand new and top priority, they were not really supported well. So I think, you know, it's something that needs to be said. And I think people need to have better memory as to how these architectures evolved. And it's quite a shame because I like the hardware. I really do. I think this Radeon 6800, the reference, is one of the most beautiful pieces of hardware I have ever owned in my life. But, you know, I just don't feel confidence on the software side. I just don't, man. And it has been that way for a long time. And these are all my experiences. If you don't believe me, you can go to my channel. There's videos of me testing all of these cards, testing the Radeon 7, 5700 XT, the RDNA 2 card, 6800, 6900 XT. The 6400 was in another PC. So anyway, that's it. I think that's my experience. I just wanted to share it with you guys, and of course, I hope this allows us to have more conversations about this and to, you know, really try to make AMD be more serious about their software side, you know, the software support. Like, really promise that they're going to do good by their customers and not abandon them. Like, it really feels like abandonment, and I do not like that. I don't like that at all. Like, you can say whatever you want about Nvidia, like, oh, multi-frame generation is for 5000 series only or whatever, or frame generation, but it is not abandonment. When you think about the 2080 Ti today, you know, the 2080 Ti came out when the Radeon 7 came out, and it still gets game optimizations. It still gets DLSS 4, like the updated transformer model. It can still run it. You know, you can still do transformer model upscaling. You can still get reflex. So it can still do all the DirectX 12 Ultimate things. You know, the direct storage, all everything. Like, the 2080 Ti still runs Unreal 5 without issues today. There's no issues at all. It runs Alan Wake 2 perfectly. Like, dude, the 2080 Ti can do everything. It came out at the same time as the Radeon 7. Look at how many architectures I had to purchase, and I still could not match the experience that I would have gotten if I just bought a 2080 Ti directly back in the day. So that's everything I wanted to say. So people, be careful. If you're buying RDNA 4, enjoy it, but be aware that you know, in the not so distant future, they might not give you the support that you're looking for in the driver's side. And I still think it's not fair to consumers. I think we need to speak more about it, but it is what it is. And I'm not promoting Nvidia. I'm just telling you which product has been better for me and which products have been not good for me. And that's it. So if you have any thoughts about this, please let me know in the comments. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.